Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Let me ask you something deeply human. Have you ever sat in silence with your phone in your hand, heart beating a little faster than you'd like to admit, wondering if you should reach out first, and then you don't, you hesitate, you convince yourself, if she wanted to talk to me, she would have messaged. You replay the last conversation over and over, searching for a sign, something hidden in her tone, her pauses, her emojis. Did she want me to call? Was she waiting for me to try again? We live in a time where vulnerability has become a gamble and pride a suit of armor. And yet, in the quiet after connection has fractured, there's often something left unsaid. Sometimes she is waiting. Not because she's playing games, but because she's protecting something soft, something still aching inside. And you're not just wondering if it's too late. You're wondering if there's still a bridge between you. Today, we're going to explore the signs, the real human emotional signs, that she hasn't fully closed the door. That maybe, just maybe, she's waiting for you to knock again, not because she needs saving, but because part of her still believes in what the two of you could be. Let's talk about that. Have you ever noticed how silence between two people can be louder than words? Not the kind of silence that feels final, but the kind that lingers, that carries weight, that almost hums with things left unsaid. You walk through your day, distracted but never quite disconnected. Her name keeps echoing in your thoughts, not loudly, not desperately, but like a soft background noise that just won't fade. And then you see it, that one Instagram story, the quote she posted at 11:47 p.m. It's about strength or healing or how sometimes we miss the ones we pretend not to. It's vague enough to mean anything, but personal enough to feel like a whisper aimed straight at you. Your heart catches, you start to wonder, is this about me? Is she still thinking about us? This is the thing most men don't realize. Women rarely disconnect abruptly when there's still something sacred to them. Emotionally, they drift in layers. Even after words have stopped, there's often a thread you may not see clearly, but that she still feels. And often when she's still holding on in her own quiet way, she's waiting, not because she's weak, but because she's tired of being the one to carry the emotional weight, because she wants you to be the one to step into the discomfort and say, I see you, I still feel this, I'm not done. You see, the signs aren't always dramatic. They're not in the fireworks. They're in the subtle spaces where intimacy once lived. Maybe she hasn't blocked you. Maybe she still watches your stories. Maybe she deleted your number but hasn't stopped memorizing it. One of the first signs she's waiting for you is when her digital silence becomes inconsistent. She's quiet, yes, but not invisible. She's there on the margins of your online world, liking something old hot, reacting to something that doesn't require a reply. It's a dance of restraint, a way of saying, I still see you, but I won't give you all of me first. And what most men miss is that this almost presence is often louder than any message she could send. Because when a woman wants to move on completely, she doesn't linger, she doesn't leave a trail, she vanishes. Her silence becomes a closed door, not an open window. But when she's still hovering in your digital space, she's not just being polite. She's reminding you that the connection still has a pulse, a quiet one, but alive. Let's go deeper. A woman who's waiting for you to reach out often starts speaking in code, not literal code, but emotional signals. She might post about something she knows you used to talk about, a movie, a song, a memory that only the two of you would understand. It's not a breadcrumb for the world. It's a signal fire for one person you. And what's fascinating is she'll often post this and disappear for hours. No follow-up, no comment, just the signal. She wants to know if you're still emotionally connected to the language the two of you once spoke so fluently. When women feel unacknowledged or misunderstood, they retreat emotionally, but they rarely let go of things they once held close without a silent protest. That protest often shows up as subtle invitations. She won't say, "Talk to me," but she might ask mutual friends about you. Not because she's nosy, but because she's trying to make sense of your silence, trying to figure out if you've already replaced her or if you're just afraid. You see, many men assume that women want grand gestures to fix what's broken, but often they're not looking for a perfect apology or a flawless plan. They're looking for presence, initiative, the willingness to open a door even if you're scared of what's behind it. I once worked with a couple who hadn't spoken in 3 months after a heated argument. They both thought the other one had checked out. But do you know what kept them emotionally tied? A silly shared Spotify playlist. Every few days she would add a new song. Not love songs, just the songs, and every week he would open it. He didn't say anything, she didn't ask. But they were still dancing with each other in the only way they knew how at the time, through music. That playlist became their bridge, and eventually he reached out, not with a text that said, "Hey," but with one that said, "That last song you added, it made me miss the way you laugh." And that one sentence reopened a door they both thought had closed for good. So ask yourself, what little signals have you ignored? What invitations have you mistaken for coincidence? Because women don't always reach out with words. They reach out with memories, with presence, with energy. And if you've been feeling a tug, an unexplained pull toward her, chances are she's been feeling it too. Now, another sign she may be waiting for you is when she starts showing up in places where she knows she might see you. Not by accident, not obsessively, but casually enough that it doesn't raise alarms, only eyebrows. Maybe she starts frequenting that coffee shop again. Maybe she says yes to that event you're also invited to. Maybe she posts a photo in a place that meant something to both of you. This isn't a trap, it's a test, not of your loyalty, but of your awareness, of your emotional literacy. She's not asking you to chase her. She's asking, do you still recognize me when I show up in quiet ways? Or do you only see me when I'm loud? Men often tell me, but she looked fine. She looked happy. She didn't seem like she wanted me to talk to her. And I always say, how someone looks in public is never the whole story, especially not for a woman who has learned how to mask her longing behind self-respect. She's not going to beg, but that doesn't mean she's not hoping. That's the difference between pride and vulnerability. Between protection and surrender. When a woman still hopes, it shows up in her restraint. Her silence isn't a dismissal. It's a boundary, one that still leaves room for you to step in with honesty and care. You might feel scared to reach out, and that fear is valid. Reconnecting is not without risk, but neither is regret. And if there's still something inside you that wonders, what if she's waiting for me, then you owe yourself the courage to find out. Because sometimes healing isn't about moving on, it's about moving toward, slowly, respectfully, but with heart. You know, the thing about emotional distance is that it doesn't always come with closure. It often arrives quietly, after too many misfires. A slow erosion, not an explosion, and when that happens, even silence can feel intimate, because she remembers. Not just the good times, but the emotional ecosystem the two of you built together. The way her name sounded coming from your mouth, the way your presence either calmed her or confused her. And if you've been sensing something still open between you, you might be right. Because when a woman hasn't fully let go, her actions will try to look detached, but her energy tells a different story. You'll notice it in the way she hasn't rewritten the past. She still speaks about you to others with softness, not bitterness. Even when she tries to be neutral, there's no venom, no disdain. That's not indifference. That's unfinished business. If she talks about you with care, even in your absence, she's not trying to erase the story. She's trying to hold it gently enough so it doesn't hurt, but not so tightly that it disappears. That's a woman who's still wondering, a woman who's still open to the possibility that what you shared wasn't just a lesson, but maybe a chapter that hasn't been finished yet. I want to share something that will hit close to home if you've been in this space recently. A woman who's still waiting for you to reach out often becomes emotionally transparent in every area except the one that matters, you. She may talk openly about her career, her goals, her friendships, even her dating life, but when someone brings up your name, she stiffens. Her breath catches, she moves the conversation along too quickly, or lingers on a single comment just a little too long. That's the subconscious body remembering something the mind is trying to move past. That's unresolved desire wrapped in logic, cloaked in timing. And let's not forget how some women cope. They may even try to date again, but listen closely, not to who they're dating, but to why. Because if every new person is compared to you, consciously or not, that's not moving on. That's searching for you in someone else. And that's not fair to them or to her. If you're paying attention, you'll start to see how emotional displacement works. She might laugh more loudly now, post more confidently, make it look like she's doing better, and maybe she is. Growth isn't a performance, it's necessary, but sometimes growth doesn't mean she's over you. It means she's learning how to survive without what she still wishes could be safe again. One man told me recently, she seems fine. I don't think she even misses me. And I asked him, what does missing someone look like to you? Because we often have this idea that someone who misses us will be curled up in tears, texting us at 2 a.m., unable to sleep. But emotional longing wears many masks. Sometimes it looks like a clean apartment with one drawer still untouched. It looks like rereading old texts without replying. It looks like creating distance not because she's moved on, but because being near you without clarity feels unbearable. A woman who still wants you in her life will often test your emotional availability without directly confronting you. She might send a casual message, completely neutral, "Hey, did you see that article about random topic?" Or "You won't believe who I ran into today." She's not trying to talk about them. She's trying to see if you're still emotionally safe, if you still respond with presence, if the door is still cracked open. And if you dismiss that message or reply with cold detachment, she'll take it as a sign he's not ready. He's not coming back, so she'll retreat again, not because she wants to, but because she's trying to protect the parts of her that once hoped. You see, when women reach out casually, they are often trying to preserve their dignity while still offering you a lifeline. They don't want to beg, but they don't want to burn the bridge either. That's the space where healing and heartbreak overlap, where hope and fear become indistinguishable. There's also something else, something men often overlook. Pay attention to how she shows up when you're going through something. Even if you're not talking regularly, if she hears about something difficult in your life and quietly checks in, "Hey, I just heard, I hope you're okay," that's not obligation. That's care. That's a part of her that still sees you as hers to worry about, even if she's no longer allowed to say so. And sometimes she won't say anything at all, but her friends will. You'll start getting second-hand messages. People will drop hints. "She mentioned you the other day," or "I think she still checks on your stuff." Those messages are never random. They're passed along for a reason, because the emotional current is still moving underneath the silence. You may not realize this, but when a woman is waiting for you to reach out, she often begins to create an emotional space in her life specifically for you. She might hold off on getting too close to someone new. She might avoid certain topics with others that feel too connected to you. It's not about being stuck in the past. It's about honoring what hasn't been resolved. One woman told me, "I stopped talking about him not because I was over it, but because every time I did, I felt more naked." like my heart was still out there, waiting for someone who didn't know whether he still wanted to hold it. And that's what this is about, isn't it? The not knowing, that space where pride and hope keep wrestling. Where the heart still wants to speak, but the ego says, you already tried, let it go. But you haven't let it go, have you? You're here watching this, listening, feeling something stir that maybe you've buried beneath logic, timelines, and fear. Wondering if it's still your move, if she's still waiting, if the connection you felt was real, or just another lesson dressed up as love. What I want you to understand is this: when a woman is waiting for you to reach out, she isn't asking for rescue. She's hoping for recognition. She doesn't need a fairy tale. She needs a sign that what you once shared still has a heartbeat. That even if everything else has changed, your ability to be present hasn't. And maybe you're thinking, but what if she's moved on already? Then let her tell you that. Not your assumptions, not your fear. Let her voice be the one to say, I've closed that door. Because until you hear it from her lips, you are building walls in your own mind. Walls she may not have wanted at all. There's courage in reaching out, but there's also wisdom in doing it with humility, with grace, not to reclaim or demand, but to reconnect, to say, I've been thinking, I've been feeling, and I needed to know if the door is still open. That's not weakness, that's emotional leadership. And if she responds with warmth, with curiosity, with even a thread of softness, you'll know. You'll know that the silence between you wasn't absence, it was waiting, it was space held with intention. Sometimes when a woman is waiting for you to reach out, she's not doing it consciously. She may have told herself she's done, that she's moving on. She may have even said those words out loud, but the body remembers, the heart remembers, even when the mind says, let go. So she moves through her life like someone rearranging furniture in a room that still smells like you. She replaces things, she adds new decor, she tells herself the space is hers again, but something feels off. And it's not just nostalgia, it's the unspoken. The questions that still wake her up at 2:17 in the morning. The ones that sound like, why didn't he fight for me? Did he think I wasn't worth the effort? Or was he just scared? When a woman is waiting, she often pretends she's not, because society tells her that to wait is to be powerless. But it's not. Waiting, true, open, emotionally intelligent waiting, is one of the bravest things a person can do. It's a willingness to believe that something unfinished still deserves a final word. You'll start to feel it in your own life too. If you're still connected to her on some emotional level, you'll sense the pull. You'll have random days where you just feel her in your space. Not because you saw her post something, not because someone mentioned her, but because you woke up and for some reason you remembered the way she used to say your name. That's not coincidence, that's emotional resonance. Two nervous systems still gently tuned into each other, even if the chords haven't been played in a while. One of the signs most men overlook is the way her life seems to echo yours intentionally or not. She starts talking about a book you once loved. She shares thoughts that sound like things you used to say. She quotes a podcast, a speaker, a phrase that you once brought into her world. That's emotional imprinting, and it's subtle but powerful. It means the way you loved her shaped how she thinks now. And when she brings those pieces into the present, especially in public, it's not just nostalgia, it's emotional tracing. She's still walking the path you once carved together. She might even do something that seems contradictory. She'll tell you she's over it, but then get visibly emotional when something reminds her of you. Maybe a restaurant sent a song. That contradiction is not manipulation, it's fragmentation. Her heart and her mind are not in the same room yet. One is still holding on, the other is trying to move forward without leaving anything behind, and maybe this is the hardest part to witness when a woman tries to become her own closure. She starts going to therapy, she journals, she travels, she glows in ways that make you second guess if you ever mattered at all. But let me tell you something, healing doesn't erase love. Growth doesn't mean she's forgotten. Sometimes women become the best version of themselves after you, not because they're better off without you, but because losing you reminded them of what they deserve. And that doesn't mean she hates you. It means she loved you deeply enough that your absence became a catalyst. And part of her may still wonder, does he see me now? That wondering shows up in delicate ways. Maybe she sends you a photo from an old memory. Nothing dramatic, just a soft, "this popped up today." And what she's really saying is, this still lives somewhere inside me. Do you remember too? Maybe she leaves a comment on something unrelated, something neutral, but her words carry familiarity. Her tone still knows you. Her rhythm still feels like home. That's not coincidence. That's muscle memory, emotional reflex, and sometimes the sign she's waiting is even more subtle than that. It's in her avoidance. She doesn't date anyone seriously for a while, not because she's waiting like a princess in a tower, but because her heart hasn't recalibrated yet. It's still attuned to you, and until she knows if you're truly gone, she doesn't want to build something new on emotional quicksand. That's not weakness, that's integrity. She doesn't post about you, she doesn't talk about you, but her eyes still soften when someone mentions your name. Her breath still changes when your song comes on. That's not someone who's healed, that's someone who's healing. And healing doesn't always need your presence, but sometimes it longs for your honesty, your voice, your effort. Just to say, I still think about what we were, and I wonder if it still matters. Now let's talk about how a woman might behave when she's trying not to wait, but keeps slipping. She becomes distant with her friends when they bring up dating. She rolls her eyes at new relationships. She claims she's focused on herself, but inside she's frustrated not just at you, but at herself, because her heart still wants something her pride won't allow. She might even go cold, not because she's angry, but because anger is the easiest armor when you feel exposed. Coldness is often grief in disguise, and silence is not always peace. Sometimes it's a scream with no voice. You'll know she's waiting when she responds emotionally to things that shouldn't matter. You post something small. She reacts. Maybe not publicly, but she views it, she sits with it, she replays it, not because she's obsessed, but because every piece of you still feels personal. And if you reach out, if you crack that silence with sincerity, watch how she responds. If she answers quickly, not with anger, but with emotion, you were never forgotten. If she answers slowly, but with depth, you were never erased. And if she answers at all, with vulnerability instead of blame, you were never unloved. So many men wait for the right moment. But connection isn't a performance, it's a presence, and the longer you wait, the more you let pride write a story that might have deserved another chapter. What keeps us stuck is not the absence of love, but the absence of permission. We don't allow ourselves to feel what's still alive. We silence it, we rationalize, we tell ourselves if she wanted me, she'd say something, but maybe she's saying it, in every quiet, trembling, incomplete way she knows how. And maybe what she's waiting for isn't a grand apology. It's a message that says, I still think about you. I still wonder. And I wanted to say something before the silence turned into something we both regret. The truth is, most relationships don't die because people stop loving each other. They die because one person stays silent while the other waits too long. Don't let that be your story. There's something so uniquely fragile about the space between two people who once knew each other deeply and yet now sit in silence. It's not always about who was right or who was wrong. It's about the invisible thread that still stretches between you. It hasn't snapped, it hasn't frayed completely, but it's tense, delicate, and it's waiting for one of you to pull gently enough so the other might feel it again. What I find most fascinating is how a woman who's waiting will often create emotional rituals around you, even if you're no longer in her daily life. She checks your page once a day, same time, as if it's part of her routine. She revisits photos she's told herself she should delete, but something in her heart just can't seem to do it. She remembers dates, anniversaries, firsts, lasts not because she's dwelling in the past, but because some part of her soul is still living there. And when she talks about love now, it's always a little distant, vague, as though she's not quite ready to imagine a future without your name somewhere in it. There's a kind of grief we don't talk about enough, the grief of unfinished connection. It's not just about loss. It's about the ache of something unresolved, something that could still become whole again if only someone had the courage to go first. And so she waits, not with desperation, but with guarded hope. She lives her life, she grows, but her heart still has a door with your name carved into it, quietly closed, but never locked. One man told me he saw his ex 6 months after their breakup, unexpectedly, at a mutual friend's gathering. She looked radiant, confident, like life had been good to her. But when their eyes met, she smiled in that way only he would recognize, not wide and bright for the crowd, but soft and trembling like her entire body remembered. And when she hugged him, she held on for half a second longer than she should have, not because she wanted to confuse him, but because for that brief moment her soul got to rest where it used to belong. Do you know what that means? It means something never ended, at least not inside her. When a woman is waiting, she'll often walk the line between dignity and desire. She won't beg, she won't chase, but she'll leave the window slightly open, just in case you remember the way in. She might still engage with your world, not to keep tabs on you, but because it's hard to look away from someone who once held her heart. She listens to your interviews. She sees the things you create. She watches the stories, the posts, the little signs of your inner world, hoping for some signal that she still lives there too. And sometimes she pulls away entirely, not because she's over it, but because it hurts too much to watch without being seen. That's when you start to notice the void. She stops showing up digitally, but you still feel her in your thoughts. In the spaces between your busyness, in the moments before sleep, when the truth becomes harder to ignore. Her absence doesn't feel like distance, it feels like suspense, like something is waiting to be named. And maybe you think if she wants to talk, she'll reach out, but what you don't see is that she already has, dozens of times, just not with words. With presence, with patience, with restraint, with emotional signals you were never taught to decode. Women speak in subtleties, a heart emoji where there used to be laughter, a shift in tone when your name comes up, a sudden silence when everyone else is loud. These are not empty gestures, these are smoke signals. One of the most telling signs that a woman is still open to you is the way she holds your memory in conversation. She doesn't weaponize it, she honors it, even in pain. If someone asks her about you and she doesn't flinch, if she speaks your name like a prayer instead of a punchline, she is still connected to your essence. She hasn't vilified you, she hasn't rewritten the story. That means the door has not closed all the way. And that, my friend, is your moment, not to exploit but to enter gently with care. So often we think love has to come roaring back with fireworks and epiphanies. But what if it returns like rain, soft, quiet, healing? Reaching out doesn't have to be grand, it just has to be real. A simple message, a moment of presence, a sentence like, "I've been doing some thinking, and I realized I miss our connection," not for closure, not for clarity, but for possibility, because sometimes she isn't waiting for you to say you were wrong. She's waiting for you to say she mattered, that what you had wasn't ordinary, that your silence doesn't mean you didn't feel. And if she's healed in a healthy way, she won't throw the past at you like a weapon. She'll open the door slowly, checking to see if you're coming with peace in your hands, not pride. That's the woman who still believes in the sacredness of what you shared, even if it hurt, even if it didn't end the way you wanted. So much of love is timing and courage. Sometimes she was ready when you weren't, and now that you are, you wonder if it's too late. But here's the truth. It's only too late if you let fear make the decision for you. A woman who's waiting isn't counting days. She's counting depth. She's waiting for something to feel different than it did when it broke. She's waiting to feel safe again with you, with herself, with the idea that maybe love doesn't always end in silence. And if she's made it this far, if she's still echoing in your world, still present in ways that defy explanation, it might not be too late. You just have to decide, will you keep building your life on unspoken words, or will you say the one thing she's quietly been hoping to hear? Not because she needs you, but because part of her still believes you might have been worth the wait. There's a point where the silence between two people stops being absence and starts becoming a third presence in the room. It's no longer just you and her, it's also the gap between you, the unspoken, the tension, the weight of what was never finished, never clarified. And she feels it just as much as you do. You might not talk anymore, but you still exist in her life, in her imagination, in her internal world, not as a ghost, but as a question, as something unresolved. And the longer that question lingers, the more it begins to shape her reality. She wonders, did he ever understand me? Did he notice the effort I gave? Did he feel it the way I did? Or was it just me carrying the weight of it all? And here's the truth most men never hear. Women don't always need the relationship to return. Sometimes they just need to feel seen by the person who once mattered most. If she's still holding space for you emotionally, mentally, spiritually, she's not waiting for your perfection. She's waiting for your honesty. She's waiting to know whether the intimacy you once shared was sacred only to her, or whether it echoed inside of you too. You'll know she's still there by the way she protects your memory. She could have told everyone the worst parts. She could have turned you into a villain, but she didn't. Even when she was hurt, she stayed quiet, or she told the truth gently. That's not weakness, that's grace, and grace is often the last gift a woman gives when she still loves you, even if she doesn't know what to do with that love anymore. Another sign she hasn't reclaimed all of her emotional real estate yet. There's a part of her life, whether it's a place, a playlist, a photo album, or even a habit, that still has your fingerprint on it. And she doesn't erase it, not because she's stuck, but because she's still deciding whether it deserves resurrection or reverence. You might think, well, she hasn't said anything to me, she's probably moved on. But let me ask you something gently. When was the last time you offered her a safe space to speak? Not a space filled with your defenses, not a moment where you were distracted or guarded, but a real soft, open invitation to speak her truth with no judgment. If she never had that space, then don't mistake her silence for resolution. Sometimes when a woman is waiting, she'll start sending her love in ways that don't reach your inbox. She prays for you, she hopes you're well, she doesn't hate you when she could. She sees your name somewhere and smiles, not because it doesn't hurt anymore, but because she's choosing to hold the beauty above the bitterness. That's maturity, that's longing wrapped in discipline. I've spoken to women who said, I had to stop reaching out not because I didn't want to, but because I couldn't keep bleeding alone. And that's something men need to understand. Just because she went quiet doesn't mean she stopped caring. It often means she reached her emotional limit without reciprocity. If she was always the one initiating, always the one opening her chest first, always the one bridging the silence, you may not realize that her quiet now is her final offer. She is still there, but she can't lead again. That's your moment, your opportunity, not to fix it overnight, not to explain away the past, but to step forward and say, I'm here now. I may have been slow, but I didn't forget. You don't need the perfect words, you just need real ones. You don't have to know exactly what will happen. You just have to care enough to show up, because what hurts most isn't when love ends, it's when it fades into doubt. When the person who once knew all of you suddenly becomes a stranger who never looks back. If she's still checking in directly or indirectly, she's not at peace. And if she wanted to destroy the connection, she would have already done it. A woman who is truly done burns the bridge, deletes the thread, removes the photos, blocks the path. But if she hasn't, if the door is still unlocked somewhere, even metaphorically, it's not because she's lost. It's because part of her still believes the man she once trusted might come back with more clarity, more presence, more truth. You may think she's waiting for a perfect version of you, but she's not. She's waiting for the present version of you. Awake, aware, accountable, someone who doesn't shrink from the discomfort of vulnerability, but instead says, I may not have all the answers, but I'm not afraid to find them with you. And sometimes when you finally do reach out, she won't answer right away, not because she doesn't care, but because she needs to know it's real this time. That your message isn't a flicker, that you won't disappear again once the silence becomes intimate. That you didn't reach out just to soothe your own guilt or curiosity. She's waiting to see if this time you can hold the weight of her heart without trembling. That's what women want at the core, not grand gestures, not perfection, not promises that feel like poetry but dissolve under pressure. They want presence, consistency, a man who doesn't just say, I miss you, but shows it, listens, adjusts. Holds space without fixing, stays even when the conversation gets hard, doesn't run when his own discomfort gets loud. That is rare, but that is what she's hoping for. That is what she's quietly praying you'll understand before she learns how to live without that hope at all. By now you might feel something inside you, something tender, something restless stirring. Maybe it's the memory of a woman whose name you haven't spoken aloud in months. Or maybe it's the realization that you haven't just been avoiding her, you've been avoiding the feeling of being that close to someone again. Because to reach out, to truly reach out, is to risk the one thing we all fear, not being met, and yet isn't that what makes love sacred in the first place? That it requires risk, that it demands presence even when the outcome is uncertain. When a woman is waiting for you to reach out, she is not sitting there hoping you'll validate her. No, she's already had to do that herself. She's already sat with the rejection, the silence, the ache. She's had nights where she played your voice in her head, and nights where she tried to delete every trace of it. She's had to rebuild herself with the absence of your words, with no roadmap, no final conversation, just memory and meaning colliding. So if she's still open, if she's still responding with softness, if she still carries your name like it holds weight, she is not weak. She is wise, she knows what she felt was real, and she's just hoping you finally see it too. But here's what you must understand. You don't get to reach out casually and expect everything to pick up where it left off. You don't get to crack open a silence that she had to make peace with unless you are willing to bring more than just nostalgia with you. Nostalgia is not enough. Missing someone is not enough. You must show up with awareness, with truth. With the courage to say, I disappeared, I got scared, I didn't know how to handle what I felt, but I feel it now. And I don't want to pretend I don't. That is what she's waiting for, not a polished speech, but your honesty. Your presence, your willingness to let her see your heart without defense, without ego, and maybe she doesn't respond the way you want her to. Maybe her reply is cautious, maybe it's quiet, maybe it doesn't come at all, but if it does, if she lets you in even a little understand the weight of that gift, do not take it lightly, because for her to let you back into the space, she had to close up in order to breathe again that is sacred. That is a woman saying, I didn't forget, I didn't replace you, I just tried to survive you, and now she's offering the possibility of newness. Not a reset, but a reckoning, a chance to build something new on the ruins of what wasn't ready the first time. But only if you're ready, only if you've stopped mistaking silence for peace and distance for healing. Only if you understand that love isn't something you find, it's something you create over and over through presence, repair, and truth. She's not asking you to be perfect, she's asking you to be human, to bring the man you've become, not the boy who left. To come forward without needing guarantees, to reach out not for closure but for connection. And if you reach out with a voice that trembles just a little, because you're feeling something real, if you speak not from memory, but from awareness, if you tell her, not in poetic metaphors, but in simple, sacred words, you mattered. I still feel it, and I wanted you to know she may cry. She may soften, she may close her eyes and remember how it felt to be seen by you again. And even if she's moved on, even if she's chosen another path, you will have given both of you something more powerful than reunion. You will have given closure that doesn't come from forgetting, but from finally being understood. And in that moment, whether it becomes the beginning of something new or the piece to finally let go, you'll know. You'll know you listened, you'll know you saw the signs, you'll know you had the courage to show up. Not because she needed it, but because you did, because love is not just about holding on, it's about knowing when to return with both hands open. And maybe, just maybe, she was waiting for that version of you all along. If something in this touched you, if it stirred something you haven't felt in a while, don't brush it off. Sit with it, reach out with your whole heart if that's what's needed, and above all, remember, the real tragedy isn't losing someone. It's not knowing what you lost until it's too late to say what was true. Let me know in the comments what's one thing you wish you could say to someone right now. If this video moved you, like it, share it, and subscribe for more content that goes beneath the surface where love and truth live together, even when they hurt. Here's to daring more, loving better, and never mistaking silence for indifference again.